There was once a young man named Daniel, who was known in his town as one of the most talented athletes anyone had ever seen. From the time he was a child, Daniel ran faster than anyone else. He had explosive speed, long strides, and a natural gift that made people stop and stare. Coaches admired him. Classmates envied him. Everyone said the same thing: this boy is destined for greatness. At every local race, Daniel won effortlessly. He barely trained, yet still outpaced others who practiced daily. He grew up hearing that he was special, and he started to believe it. Meanwhile, in the same town lived another boy named James. Unlike Daniel, James wasn't naturally fast, wasn't strong, and he wasn't built like an athlete. In fact, when they were younger, James often finished last in school races. People laughed at him, sometimes even pitying him. But James carried something inside that others couldn't see, an unshakable belief in the power of effort and consistency. While Daniel relied on his natural talent, James decided he would train every single day. Rain or shine, hot or cold, he laced up his shoes and ran. He woke up before dawn, ran miles before school, and studied techniques to improve his stride. He wasn't obsessed with being the fastest today. He was focused on getting a little better every day. First, no one noticed James. His progress was slow, barely visible, but he didn't care. He believed that talent might win short races, but consistency would win the marathon of life. As the years went by, Daniel continued winning without much effort. But something began to change. As he got older, his competitors improved. Some of the kids he once beat easily were now training harder, pushing themselves further. Daniel still relied on talent, but talent alone wasn't enough anymore. Then came the regional championships, the biggest race of their teenage years. Everyone expected Daniel to win. His reputation was legendary. James had also entered the race, but few paid attention to him. To them, he was just the boy who tried hard but never stood out. The day of the race arrived. The stadium was packed, the crowd buzzing with excitement. Daniel, confident as always, barely warmed up. James, on the other hand, was calm, prepared, and focused. When the race began, Daniel shot forward like a bullet. His raw talent carried him far ahead in the first half. The crowd roared his name, but then something happened. Halfway through the race, Daniel began to slow down. He hadn't trained his endurance. His body wasn't conditioned for the long fight. James, however, maintained his steady pace. Step after step, breath after breath, he stayed consistent. As Daniel's legs grew heavy, James gained ground. With the finish line in sight, the unbelievable happened. James overtook Daniel. The crowd gasped. The boy they had ignored, the one who wasn't talented, crossed the finish line first. Daniel collapsed in frustration. James crossed the line, not with speed, but with the reward of consistency. This moment became a lesson not just for Daniel, but for everyone who witnessed it. Talent can give you a head start, but consistency always wins the race. After the race, reporters asked James how he did it. He smiled and said, "I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the strongest. But I showed up every day. When you show up every day, you eventually beat those who only show up when they feel like it." That story spread through the town, and people began to understand that greatness is not about bursts of effort, but about disciplined consistency. Years passed, and both Daniel and James grew into adulthood. Their story didn't end at that race. In fact, it was only the beginning. Daniel struggled for a while. Losing to James shook his confidence. For the first time in his life, he realized talent alone wasn't enough. He had to learn discipline. But habits built over years are hard to change. Trained hard for a few weeks, then stopped. He made big promises, then gave up when results didn't come fast enough. James, however, lived by the same rule that had carried him before: consistency over everything. Didn't need to be the best today, but he refused to go a single day without progress. He carried this philosophy beyond running into his career, his relationships, and his health. When James applied for a job, he wasn't the most qualified, but he worked harder than anyone else. He showed up on time every day, learned steadily, and improved consistently. While others complained, he focused. While others looked for shortcuts, he built foundations. 10 years later, James was a respected leader in his company, not because he was a genius, but because he never quit showing up. People trusted him because they knew he was reliable, steady, and consistent. Daniel's journey was different. He had moments of brilliance, but they were inconsistent. He would shine brightly for a moment, then fade away. Opportunities came to him because of his reputation for talent, but they slipped away because he lacked discipline. Employers admired his skills, but grew frustrated with his unreliability. Friends admired his potential, but lost faith in his ability to follow through. Eventually, Daniel went back to James and asked him, "How do you do it? How do you keep moving forward even when you don't feel like it?" James replied with words that Daniel never forgot. Discipline doesn't care about feelings. Consistency doesn't ask if you're motivated. It asks only one thing: will you show up today? If the answer is yes, then tomorrow takes care of itself. The wisdom of those words spread like fire. People began to see James not just as a runner, but as a living example of the truth: consistency beats talent when talent doesn't stay consistent. Think about it. History is filled with people who weren't the most talented, but became legends because of consistency. Writers who wrote a single page every day until they created masterpieces. Entrepreneurs who worked tirelessly, building brick by brick until their empire stood tall. Athletes who practiced longer, trained harder, and stayed steady when others quit. Talent might open the first door, but only consistency keeps you inside the room. By the time James reached his later years, his philosophy had inspired thousands. He mentored young people, teaching them that life is not about flashes of brilliance, but about steady effort. He often repeated the same line: consistency is the great equalizer. It makes the average extraordinary. Daniel eventually found peace, too. Though he never reached the heights his talent once promised, he learned from James that it's never too late to build discipline. He started small, making daily promises to himself, and slowly his life improved. Their story became a parable passed down in the town. One man born with talent but careless, the other born ordinary but consistent. And everyone who heard it knew the truth. Talent may excite the crowd, but consistency changes the world.